And Laura, President Trump reiterating that he is still open, potentially, to talking with the special counsel Robert Mueller after Rudy Giuliani joined the president's legal team in the recent weeks, the former New York City mayor, going on a media blitz saying that he will have to set some preconditions before a potential Q&A between the president and Mueller. Let's bring in David Bruno. He is a defense attorney and a former prosecutor, and Mercedes Colwin. She is a Fox News legal analyst. By show of hands, and thank you for coming in on a Saturday afternoon.
Sure. Hello.
Show of hands.
Pleasure.
Thanks. You think it's a good idea for Donald Trump to sit down with Bob Mueller?
Our hands are down.
That's what I figured. So here's my question. The president said that he might do this if it's fair. But the only way something could be fair is if he knows the questions in advance, which would lead to it being a written interview potentially, right? Or is there another way, Mercedes?
No, I mean, that's exactly a great question. Yes, it could be written questions, but as we spoke when we were preparing for today, that's always been proposed, and Mueller said no. So the written questions, but the real big issue here is that you've got over 1 million documents and so many pitfalls when it comes to all the questions that have already been proposed, that are out there, that are recorded, that Mueller wants to ask. Each one of those questions has multiple tentacles in it, and it's really just intended to trap the president in some way. And frankly, so not only are you answering the questions, God forbid he says President Trump takes the fifth, well, then that's a whole host of other issues.
So if the president wants to talk, David, and his attorneys don't want him to talk, how do you convince a client that this is not a good idea? And we know that the president says he likes to speak.
Sure. I mean, he's been saying that he wants to talk, and that is motivated by public perception. Okay? As attorneys, we cannot take that into consideration. That is not the advice he's getting from counsel, as he said multiple times. He's saying that his attorneys are telling him not to speak. That would be the same advice I'd give to him, okay? The 49 questions have been released. Look at the news today. A close ally of Donald Trump's was interviewed by Mueller. There's no other reason for him to be interviewed as to ask questions about President Trump.
I want to ask you about Rudy Giuliani, who has just joined the legal team. Ty Cobb out, John Dowd out. They did not talk at all publicly to the media. Right. Jay Sekulow somewhat. Now Rudy Giuliani is in, and he is talking a lot. Smart strategy?
Not advisable. I mean, we're both seasoned lawyers. That's not something that you generally do. I mean, what we do, and frankly, we're faced with those issues all the time. Our clients do get approached by the media. We ask for the questions ahead of time. What are the questions that you want to ask your client? We'll respond in a written form, because this is when it starts to get slippery slope. Things may come out. You don't intend it to be in any way to harm your client, but it could be.
Yeah, I echo Alan Dershowitz's comments earlier this morning on Fox and Friends. He said that the statements coming out has to be through one person with one voice consistently. And we've seen what has happened when that did on the Hannity show. He said multiple things that have been inconsistent with what Cohen said and what Trump has said. Problematic when you're trying to put together a defense and there's an investigation going on.
Let me ask you about another case, the one in Virginia/Maryland, but let's talk about in Virginia, the judge, T.S. Ellis, with Paul Manafort, who basically said, I don't think you get unfettered access, a special counsel. He was very, very skeptical about a special counsel and whether or not they have the purview to go into Paul Manafort's finances. Is that judge right?
Well, certainly it depends on what the memo says. We know that there's a memo that Mueller had received from Rothenstein. That's why the judge wants to see that memo in private. He said, I'll look at it in camera. I'm not going to share it. You've given this memo to me. It's heavily redacted. I want to know, what were you told that was scope of your investigation? And then I'll decide whether you're abusing the process by going after Manafort in such a way. But I have to tell you very frankly, any defense attorney will tell you, when your clients are in the throes, in the thick of this type of investigation, all this conversation happens behind the scenes, where they're squeezing your client for information. They don't want them. They want the big fish.
And you say the thick of the investigation. Paul Manafort's not out of the woods yet, right, David? Because this is one judge in Virginia. He also has a case in Maryland.
Right.
As well.
This is the tax case we're talking about.
Right.
Interesting point to follow up on the August 2nd, 2017 memorandum, Rosenstein's memorandum. They initially redacted it to this judge to make the point that they had the authority to go after Manafort in this way. This has also been a battle between the DOJ and Congress Congress, because this has been a document that Congress is trying to get, and they've been battling, as we've seen. We've seen the impeachment draft memo that's been authored, and some other things that we've seen in the press. So this memo is important moving forward, not only to this case, but to Congress.
Got to go. Last question, though. You think the Mueller probe wraps up how long?
Oh, it's going to take a long time. At least a year or two.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The Manafort case has to be tried before anything.
Right.
So at the very least, we have to come to conclusion on that case.
Looks like we'll have you back a lot, David Mercedes. Thanks so much.
Sounds great. Thanks, Blake.